There is something nobody ever teaches you about being accused of something you did not do. And it is the single most important piece of social intelligence you will ever learn. Most people, the moment someone points a finger at them, do the exact same thing. They panic, they explain, they justify. They say, wait, let me tell you what actually happened, and I want you to understand something deeply before this video is over. The moment you do that, you have already lost, not because you are guilty, but because the psychological game was never about truth. It was about control, and by defending yourself on someone else's terms, you handed them all of it. Think about every time in your life someone accused you of something false. Maybe it was a coworker who told your boss you dropped the ball on a project you never even touched. Maybe it was someone in your social circle who spread a story that painted you as the villain. Maybe it was a partner who threw accusations at you that felt like they came out of nowhere. Your instinct was to explain yourself, to prove them wrong, to correct the record. And here is the uncomfortable truth about that instinct. It is a trap, a psychological trap that even highly intelligent people fall into over and over again. Psychologists who study social dynamics have found that when a person under accusation immediately begins to explain, observers unconsciously interpret that urgency as evidence of guilt. Not because logic supports that conclusion, but because of something called the anxiety association effect. When a person is anxious and explanatory in a high-stakes moment, the human brain pattern matches that behavior to times when it has seen guilt in action. Innocent people who stay calm, who do not rush to explain, are actually perceived as more credible. The people who panic into defense mode end up looking exactly the way the accuser wanted them to look: frantic, guilty, weak. So what do the people who actually understand this game do differently? They do not defend. They redirect. They apply psychological pressure in the opposite direction, and they do it in a way that forces the person making the accusation to reveal themselves. There are 3 specific ways to do this, and understanding them will completely change how you navigate conflict, workplace politics, and toxic social situations. The first approach is what behavioral analysts call assumption reversal. Instead of denying the claim, you act as though the accusation itself requires evidence before you even take it seriously. You say something like, "That is an interesting position. What specifically are you basing that on?" You are not arguing. You are not defending. You are calmly demanding accountability from the person who launched the accusation, and watch what happens. Someone who is telling the truth will have a clear, specific answer. Someone who fabricated the story or who is repeating gossip without verification will immediately stall. They will say things like, "I just heard," or "people are saying," or "I thought it was obvious." That stalling is your information. You do not need a confession. Their inability to produce a single concrete fact is the confession. If you find this kind of psychological awareness genuinely useful, go ahead and like this video, because what comes next goes even deeper. The second approach is called controlled agreement, and it is one of the most psychologically powerful moves in social conflict. Instead of pushing back, you agree with part of the frame of the accusation, but you do it in a way that reveals its absurdity. If someone accuses you of something and you say, "You know what? If that were true, I would completely understand why you would be upset. Now walk me through exactly what you saw." You have just done something extraordinary. You validated their emotional position without admitting guilt. And by asking them to walk you through what they saw, you have placed the burden of proof entirely on them. Most false accusations cannot survive that question, because when someone has to reconstruct a specific timeline of specific events, lies collapse fast. Fabricated stories have no weight when you push them to carry it. The third approach is the one that most people never think of because it requires the most patience. It is called strategic silence with delayed pressure. Researchers in negotiation science consistently find that silence is one of the most underused tools in human conflict. When someone accuses you of something in a group setting or in an emotionally heated moment, say almost nothing. Acknowledge that you heard them. Maintain steady eye contact. Do not look away. Do not get visibly upset. And most importantly, do not fill the silence with noise. Let it sit. What happens next is a psychological phenomenon. The accuser, having expected resistance, starts to feel the weight of their own words. In the absence of a reaction they can feed off, they often begin to backpedal, over-explain, or contradict themselves. You did not have to say a word. You just had to wait. And then, when the timing is right, when they are already tangled in their own story, you ask the one question they cannot cleanly answer. So just to make sure I understand this correctly, what exactly are you saying happened? Understanding these approaches is not about becoming manipulative. It is about recognizing that the world is not always a fair place, and that people who mean you harm have often already decided what narrative they want to push. Kindness without awareness is not a virtue. It is a vulnerability. The goal of learning these psychological frameworks is not to become someone who plays dirty. It is to make sure that when someone tries to use your honesty and your instinct to defend yourself against you, you are not standing there empty-handed. The next time someone comes at you with an accusation, remember this: you are not obligated to perform your innocence for their audience. You are not required to explain yourself under their terms. What you are required to do is stay calm, redirect the pressure, and let the truth do what it does when you stop blocking it with your own panic. Let the bullet fly. Let them talk. And watch how much a person reveals when they realize you are not going to fight them the way they expected. Drop a number in the comments. If you have ever been falsely accused or had someone try to twist a situation to make you look guilty, drop a 1. If you have used silence or redirection to flip a situation in your favor, drop a 2. Either way, share what happened, because this community learns from real experience, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now.